he succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall, which I have undertaken for more than 5 decades.
Something enormous just happened inside the British royal family. And this is not about a scandal, a feud, or a tabloid rumor. This is something far more significant. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, the future King of England, has just made one of the most dramatic and jaw-dropping announcements in recent royal family history. And by the time we reach the end of this video, you are going to be thinking about the British monarchy in a completely different way. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, what a video to land on first. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we go deeper than the headlines, deeper than the gossip, and right into the heart of what the monarchy actually means in the 21st century. Today, we are talking about Prince William's massive pledge involving the Duchy of Cornwall, one of the oldest, wealthiest, and most historically significant land estates in the entire United Kingdom. What William has announced is nothing short of a quiet revolution. But before we dive in, I want you to think about something. When you picture the British royal family, what words come to mind? Tradition, privilege, wealth, ceremony? Now ask yourself this: what if one of the most powerful members of that family is actively trying to rewrite what every single one of those words means? That is exactly what we are looking at today. Let's get into it. What is the Duchy of Cornwall? To fully understand just how enormous this announcement is, we need to start at the beginning. We need to understand what the Duchy of Cornwall actually is. Because if you don't know the full weight of this institution, you won't truly grasp the scale of what William has just pledged. The Duchy of Cornwall is not simply a piece of land. It is not a holiday estate or a country retreat. It is one of the largest and most powerful private estates in the entire United Kingdom, with roots stretching back to the medieval era. We are talking about an institution that is over 600 years old, older than the printing press, older than the discovery of the Americas, older than most of the nations that exist on the planet today. Right now, the Duchy of Cornwall spans a staggering 128,000 acres of land. Let that sink in for a moment. 128,000 acres. That is not a farm. That is not a neighborhood. That is a territory, spread across 19 counties throughout England. And here is something that surprises many people when they first learn about it. Despite being called the Duchy of Cornwall, it does not exist solely in Cornwall. Far from it. The estate stretches across Bath, Devon, including the legendary Dartmoor, the iconic Isles of Scilly off the far southwestern tip of England, and even Kennington in South London. So this is not some remote rural landholding tucked away in the southwest. This estate reaches right into the heart of one of the most densely populated cities on Earth. Now, who owns and controls all of this land? Traditionally, the Duchy of Cornwall has been the private domain of the heir to the throne, specifically the Prince of Wales. It exists to provide a private income to whoever holds that title. And that income is substantial. The Duchy of Cornwall generates well in excess of £20 million per year in private income for the Prince of Wales. When King Charles III ascended to the throne following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, he passed the duchy directly to his son William, who became the new Prince of Wales. That transfer was automatic. It came with the title. And almost overnight, Prince William became the steward of one of the most powerful landed estates in the country. Now here is where it gets interesting, because William did not simply take ownership of this ancient institution and continue business as usual. He did not sit back and let the millions roll in while the duchy hummed along in the background. No. From very early on, there were signals, quiet at first, but growing louder, that William intended to do something different with this extraordinary inheritance. And now, we know exactly what that something different looks like. The announcement itself, building suspense. All right, here we go. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Prince William has just announced that the Duchy of Cornwall will be selling 20% of all of its property. Yes, you heard that correctly. 20% of all its property over the next 10 years. Now just pause on that for a second. This is not a token gesture. This is not a press release written by a PR team to make the royal family look good. This is an actual binding strategic decision to liquidate a significant portion of one of the oldest royal estates in British history. And the money raised from those sales? It is estimated to generate approximately £500 million. £500 million. Now the question is, and this is the question that matters most, where does that money go? Does it go into the royal coffers? Does it fund palace renovations? Does it pay for royal tours and ceremonial events? No. No, it does not. That £500 million will be invested back into the communities that surround and live within the duchy's land, into affordable housing, into environmental projects, into local economies, into the lives of real people living in real towns and villages across England. This is not wealth extraction. This is wealth redistribution, coming from the heir to the British throne. And if that doesn't make your jaw drop just a little, I don't know what will. Breaking down the numbers. Now let's get specific, because the details of this plan are where it really starts to feel real. And I want you to understand not just the headline figure of £500 million, but exactly where that money is going and why each allocation matters. First, housing. One of the most pressing crises in the United Kingdom right now, and honestly, across much of the developed world, is the lack of affordable housing. Rents are at historic highs. First-time buyers are being priced out of the market. Young people are living with their parents well into their 30s. Families are being placed in temporary accommodation because there simply aren't enough homes. William's plan directly addresses this. The new duchy strategy includes plans to provide an additional 12,000 homes by 2040. Not luxury apartments for wealthy investors, not holiday homes for the affluent. 12,000 homes, and critically, about a third of these are intended to be affordable homes. Homes that working families, key workers, young people, and lower-income households can actually afford to live in. To back this up, the duchy will be investing £161 million in housing. That is a transformative sum in any context, but coming from a royal estate, it is genuinely historic. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. William already has an initiative called Homewoods, a project specifically focused on tackling homelessness. The duchy's housing investment will connect directly with that work, creating a joined-up approach to one of Britain's most intractable social problems. Second, jobs and local economies. Now here's a piece of this announcement that doesn't always get the attention it deserves, but it is absolutely crucial. Because building affordable homes is only half the equation. People also need work, they need livelihoods, they need economic opportunity close to where they live. The duchy strategy sets aside £123 million for workplaces and the creation of rural jobs. This recognizes something that urban policymakers often overlook. Rural communities across England, in Cornwall, Devon, the Isles of Scilly, are facing a quiet economic crisis. Young people are leaving. Local businesses are struggling. The economic fabric of these communities is fraying. By investing over £100 million into creating workplaces and supporting rural employment, William's duchy is essentially betting on the long-term vitality of communities that have felt, for a long time, like they've been left behind. Third, renewable energy. This is where we start to see William's broader environmental vision really come into focus. The duchy is committing to the expansion of solar panels on rooftops across the southwest of England, with the remarkable ambition of generating enough electricity to power 40,000 homes. Think about what that means. 40,000 families in Cornwall, in Devon, in rural communities that have historically depended on expensive energy imports, could be powered by clean, renewable solar energy generated right on their doorstep. This is not abstract climate policy. This is tangible, immediate, life-changing infrastructure investment. Fourth, environment, nature, and biodiversity. Finally, and this is close to William's heart in a very personal way, there is £20 million dedicated to environmental schemes. This includes reducing emissions, restoring peatlands, and protecting and enhancing biodiversity across the duchy's estates. Peatlands, in particular, are extraordinarily important in the context of the climate crisis. They store vast amounts of carbon, far more per acre than forests, and when they are degraded or destroyed, that carbon is released into the atmosphere. Restoring peatlands is one of the most effective things we can do to combat climate change at a landscape scale, and the duchy's commitment to this work is genuinely exciting for anyone who cares about the environment. William, in his own words, the vision. Now, numbers are impressive, but what truly tells us who William is and what drives him here are his own words. Because it's one thing to issue a press release with big figures attached. It's another thing entirely to speak with personal conviction about why you are doing something this bold. And William has done exactly that. In speaking about the duchy's new strategy, Prince William said, and I want you to really hear this, "We are not the traditional landowner. We want to be more than that. There is so much good we can do. I'm trying to make sure I'm prioritizing stuff that's going to make people's lives living in those areas better." Read those words again. We are not the traditional landowner. We want to be more than that. This is a future King of England, talking about one of the oldest feudal land estates in British history, and explicitly rejecting the traditional model of what that ownership looks like. He is not saying, "We are great stewards of this land, and we always have been." He is not defending the status quo. He is saying, the old way is not good enough. We can do more. We should do more. And we are going to. That is a remarkable thing to say. And it signals something deep about the kind of King William intends to be when his time comes. Will Beck, the chief executive of the Duchy of Cornwall, reinforced this vision powerfully, saying that the duchy should exist to make positive impact, particularly in the communities where we can make the biggest difference. These are not the words of an institution that is simply managing its inheritance. These are the words of an institution that is actively reimagining its purpose. And here is a question I want to put to you watching this right now. Do you think this is the kind of shift the British monarchy needs to make? Is this the right direction for the future King of England to be heading in? Let me know in the comments, because I genuinely want to hear what you think about this. The historical context, why this is so significant. To understand why this announcement is so seismic, we need to take a step back and look at the Duchy of Cornwall in its historical context. Because this institution has not always been associated with affordable housing and environmental restoration. The Duchy of Cornwall was founded in 1337 by King Edward III, who created it as a means of providing an income for the heir to the throne. From the very beginning, it was rooted in the feudal system, a system in which vast amounts of land were controlled by a small number of powerful individuals, and the majority of people who lived and worked on that land had very little say in how it was used or who it benefited. For nearly 700 years, the duchy functioned within the logic of that system. Land was an asset to be managed, maintained, and made profitable. Tenants were there to pay rent. The primary purpose of the estate was to serve the financial interests of the Prince of Wales, whoever that happened to be at the time. Now, to be fair, there have been various modernization efforts over the decades, and the duchy has, in more recent years, made gestures toward being a more responsible and community-minded landlord. But those were gestures, incremental, modest, and mostly cosmetic. What William has announced is not a gesture. It is a strategic transformation, a fundamental reimagining of what the duchy is for. The BBC has described it as an image makeover, but I think that framing slightly undersells what is happening here. This is not just about how the duchy looks. This is about what the duchy actually does with its land, its money, and its power. And the shift from medieval feudal landlord to community investor and environmental steward, backed by £500 million, is not an image makeover. It is a revolution. William's wider track record, This isn't out of the blue. Now, some of you watching this might be thinking, okay, this sounds good, but is it real? Is this just another royal PR exercise? Or does William actually have a track record of following through on his commitments? This is a completely fair question, and it deserves an honest answer. The truth is that this announcement does not come out of nowhere. It comes from a man who has spent years, not months, not weeks, but years, putting his personal energy and his royal platform behind some of the most pressing issues of our time. Let's talk about a few examples. Homelessness. William has been passionate about addressing homelessness for much of his adult life. He has spent nights sleeping rough to raise awareness. He has met with homeless people, visited shelters, and worked with organizations on the front lines of this crisis. His Homewoods initiative, which we mentioned earlier, is a direct extension of that long-standing commitment. And now, through the Duchy's housing strategy, he is backing that passion with serious financial muscle. Environmental conservation. William's commitment to the natural world is not a recent PR pivot. He grew up with a father, King Charles III, who was talking about climate change and environmental responsibility long before it was fashionable to do so. William has inherited and expanded that passion, and he has channeled it into one of the most ambitious philanthropic initiatives of his generation. That initiative is, of course, the Earthshot Prize. If you haven't heard of the Earthshot Prize, let me tell you, it is extraordinary. Launched by William in 2020, the prize awards £1 million to 5 winners each year, individuals, communities, and organizations that have developed or are developing innovative solutions to the world's most urgent environmental challenges. By 2030, that means 50 solutions will have been funded and amplified through this initiative. The aim is to inspire optimism and action on climate change at a global scale. This is not a small charity. This is a global movement, and it came directly from William's vision and leadership. So when William says he wants the Duchy of Cornwall to prioritize social impact and environmental restoration, this is not the first time he has said something like this, and it is not the first time he has backed those words with action. He has a track record, and that track record matters. The 5 key areas, a closer look. Now let's zoom in a little further on the where of this announcement, because location matters enormously here. The Duchy's new strategy will focus its greatest efforts on 5 specific areas where the estate has the most significant landholdings and therefore the greatest potential for impact. Those 5 areas are Bath, Cornwall, Dartmoor in Devon, the Isles of Scilly, and Kennington in South London. Let's think about each of these for a moment, because they tell an interesting story about the diversity of communities that this strategy is designed to serve. Bath is a UNESCO World Heritage City, famous for its Georgian architecture and Roman baths, but it is also a city facing real housing pressures, with property prices that have become increasingly unaffordable for local people. The Duchy's investment here could make a genuine difference to people who have been priced out of the city they grew up in. Cornwall is one of the most beautiful counties in England, but also one of the most economically deprived. It has long struggled with seasonal employment, low wages, a lack of affordable housing, partly driven by the second home market and holiday lets, and limited economic opportunity for young people. Cornwall needs exactly the kind of investment that this strategy promises: affordable homes, rural jobs, renewable energy. This could be genuinely transformative for Cornish communities. Dartmoor is one of England's great wild landscapes, a national park of extraordinary beauty, steeped in history and legend. It is also a place where the tension between conservation and community life plays out in very real ways. The Duchy's environmental investment here, including peatland restoration, could help protect this landscape for generations to come, while also supporting the people who call it home. The Isles of Scilly are a tiny archipelago of islands 28 miles off the tip of Cornwall, remote, breathtaking, and extraordinarily fragile in terms of both their environment and their economy. The permanent population of the islands is only around 2,200 people, and they face unique challenges around housing affordability, economic sustainability, and environmental protection. For such a small community, the Duchy's commitment to investment here is proportionally huge. And then there is Kennington in South London. And this, for me, is one of the most interesting aspects of the whole announcement, because Kennington is not a rural idyll. It is a densely populated, diverse urban neighborhood right in the heart of one of the world's great cities. The Oval Cricket Ground is there. Lambeth Palace, the Archbishop of Canterbury's official residence, is nearby. And the Duchy of Cornwall has extensive landholdings in the area, including much of the Kennington estate. The fact that Kennington is one of the 5 priority areas tells us that this strategy is not just about preserving beautiful countryside. It is about investing in urban communities too, in places where affordable housing and economic opportunity are desperately needed right on the doorstep of some of Britain's wealthiest neighborhoods. I want to ask you something here. Which of these 5 areas do you think will see the most significant impact from this investment? Think about it, and drop your answer in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious what you think. The bigger picture. What does this mean for the monarchy? Okay, so we have talked about the numbers, the locations, the history, and William's track record. But now I want to zoom out even further and ask the biggest question of all. What does this announcement tell us about the future of the British monarchy? Because make no mistake, this is not just a story about land sales and housing developments. This is a story about power, purpose, and the evolving relationship between one of the world's oldest monarchies and the people it is meant to serve. The British royal family has faced significant challenges to its relevance and public support in recent years. The debates around the institution's role in the modern world have never been louder or more pointed. Questions about privilege, accountability, and purpose swirl constantly around the Windsors. And while the monarchy retains significant public support, particularly following the late Queen Elizabeth II's extraordinary reign, that support is not unconditional, and it is not guaranteed for future generations. William clearly understands this, and his approach to the Duchy of Cornwall feels like a very deliberate statement of intent about the kind of monarchy he wants to lead. He is not retreating into ceremony and tradition. He is not hiding behind palace walls. He is not using ancient institutions as personal cash machines while the communities around them struggle. He is doing something different. He is saying, this wealth, this land, this power, it comes with responsibility. And I am going to honor that responsibility in ways that actually make a difference to real people. Now, you might push back on this. You might say, but William is still incredibly wealthy. The duchy still generates £20 million a year for him personally. He is still living a life of extraordinary privilege that the vast majority of people could never dream of. And you would not be wrong to point that out. This announcement does not make William an ordinary person. It does not erase the fundamental inequality that exists between the royal family and the rest of society. But here is the thing. Change is rarely all or nothing. Transformation rarely happens overnight. And the question is not whether William has become a perfect egalitarian. Clearly he hasn't, and he would not claim to be. The question is whether he is moving in the right direction, whether he is using his extraordinary privilege to do genuine good, whether the institutions he controls are shifting toward greater social purpose. And on all 3 of those questions, this announcement suggests the answer is yes. Public and expert reaction. The reaction to William's announcement has been, as you might expect, broadly positive, though not without some nuance. Housing charities and community organizations across the southwest of England have welcomed the news with real enthusiasm. The commitment to 12,000 new homes by 2040, with a third of them affordable, addresses a need that these organizations have been highlighting for years. The specific focus on areas like Cornwall and Bath where housing costs have become genuinely crisis level for local residents, has been particularly welcomed. Environmental groups have similarly responded with cautious optimism. The commitment to peatland restoration and biodiversity enhancement is scientifically sound and ecologically significant. The solar energy expansion is ambitious in scale, and £20 million, while not enormous in the context of the UK's overall environmental challenges, is a meaningful contribution to landscape-scale conservation work. Some commentators have noted, fairly, that £500 million raised over 10 years from the sale of 20% of the duchy's assets is a significant sum, but that it represents just a fraction of what would be needed to truly solve the housing crisis in the affected areas. Cornwall alone has been estimated to need tens of thousands of new affordable homes just to meet current demand. 12,000 homes across 19 counties over 15 years is a contribution, not a complete solution. But I think it would be a mistake to dismiss this, because it isn't a complete solution. Very few things are complete solutions. What matters is whether this is a genuine, meaningful, well-directed effort to do real good. And by every measure I can apply, it is. There is also a broader point here about the model that William is establishing. Because if the heir to the throne can demonstrate that ancient landed estates can be reimagined as vehicles for social investment rather than personal enrichment, that has implications far beyond the Duchy of Cornwall. It sends a signal to every other large landowner in Britain, of which there are many, about what responsible stewardship of land and wealth can look like. Comparisons with the past. How different is this? Let's take a moment to compare this announcement with what has come before. Because context matters, and understanding what makes this different from previous royal initiatives helps us appreciate just how significant a step this is. Previous Princes of Wales have, of course, made their own contributions to society through the Duchy. There have been charitable donations, community grants, and various efforts to be a responsible landlord. The Duchy has supported local farming communities, maintained historic buildings, and participated in various rural development initiatives. But, and this is crucial, the scale of what William is now proposing dwarfs anything that has been attempted before. £500 million over 10 years, 12,000 new homes, solar panels for 40,000 households. These are not incremental improvements. They are structural changes, and the framing is different too. Previous approaches tended to present the Duchy as a generous benefactor, a great institution graciously giving something back. William's framing is categorically different. He is saying, the Duchy exists to serve communities. That is its purpose. That is its reason for being. Not as a nice-to-have add-on to wealth generation, but as its primary mission. That is a philosophical shift as much as a financial one. And philosophical shifts, in institutions as old and as powerful as the Duchy of Cornwall, are actually the hardest thing to achieve. Money can be allocated and reallocated. Strategies can be written and rewritten. But changing the fundamental identity of an institution, its sense of what it is for, that is genuinely hard to do. William appears to be doing it. What happens next? The road ahead. So where does this go from here? What does the road ahead look like, both for the Duchy's new strategy and for William's broader vision? Over the next 10 years, we should expect to see a steady program of property sales, the 20% liquidation of Duchy assets that will generate the £500 million investment fund. These sales will be carefully managed to avoid flooding local property markets or disrupting communities. The strategy is long-term and deliberate, not a fire sale. We should expect to see ground broken on the first of the 12,000 new homes well before the end of this decade. The affordable housing component of this is particularly important to watch, ensuring that those homes remain genuinely affordable over the long term, rather than becoming another addition to the private rental market, will be a key challenge. The renewable energy expansion, particularly the rooftop solar program in the Southwest, is likely to be one of the faster-moving elements of the strategy. Solar installation is technically straightforward, and the economics are increasingly compelling. We could see tens of thousands of homes benefiting from this within just a few years. The environmental work, peatland restoration, biodiversity schemes, emissions reduction, will be slower and less visible, but in some ways the most important in the long run. These are generational investments in the health of the land itself, and their benefits will be felt for decades and centuries to come. And throughout all of this, William will be watching, measuring, adjusting. This is not a strategy that gets announced and then forgotten. William has staked his personal reputation on this. He has spoken in his own words about what he wants to achieve. He is invested, not just financially, but personally and emotionally, in seeing this succeed. And here is the question I will leave you with before we wrap up. Do you think William can pull this off? Do you think this bold strategy will deliver the transformation it promises? Or do you worry that, somewhere along the way, the old priorities will reassert themselves? That the machinery of wealth and privilege will prove too powerful to overcome? I genuinely don't know the answer. But I believe, based on everything I have seen from William over the years, that he is trying, really trying. And in a world that is too often cynical about the powerful doing anything other than protecting their own interests, that matters. Why this matters beyond Britain. Before we close, I want to make one more point that I think is often missed in the coverage of stories like this. And that is the global significance of what William is doing. The British royal family is not just a British institution. It is watched, followed, discussed, and debated by hundreds of millions of people around the world. The decisions made inside the walls of royal estates and palaces reverberate far beyond the shores of the United Kingdom. What the royal family does, and how it does it, sends signals to people everywhere about what is possible, what is right, and what leadership looks like in the 21st century. When the heir to the British throne stands up and says, "We are not the traditional landowner, we want to be more than that," that message travels around the world. It reaches into the conversations happening in boardrooms, in parliaments, in community centers, and in family homes in every country on earth. And that message, the message that those who hold wealth and power have a responsibility to use it for the common good, is one of the most important messages that anyone in a position of privilege can send right now. We are living through a period of extraordinary global inequality. The gap between the wealthy and everyone else is widening. The housing crisis is not unique to Britain. It is playing out in cities and communities from Lagos to Los Angeles, from Sydney to Stockholm. The climate crisis respects no borders. The need for affordable housing, rural economic opportunity, and environmental restoration is universal. William's announcement will not solve any of these problems on its own, but it is a model, a demonstration of what it looks like when someone with great wealth and power decides to direct those resources toward the public good rather than private accumulation. And models matter. They inspire. They challenge. They say, this is possible. This can be done, if we choose to. All right, let's bring this home. Prince William has just made one of the most significant announcements in the modern history of the British royal family. He has pledged to sell 20% of the Duchy of Cornwall's 128,000-acre estate over the next 10 years, raising an estimated £500 million. That money will go into affordable housing, 12,000 new homes by 2040, a third of which will be affordable. It will go into creating rural jobs and sustainable workplaces. It will power 40,000 homes through renewable solar energy. And it will restore and protect some of England's most precious natural landscapes. This comes from a man with a proven track record of caring about these issues. Through the Earthshot Prize, through Homewoods, through years of personal engagement with the challenges of homelessness, housing, and environmental sustainability. And it comes wrapped in a philosophical statement that should make all of us, regardless of where we stand on the monarchy, stop and pay attention. We are not the traditional landowner. We want to be more than that. That is the sound of a future king choosing a different path. And whether you love the monarchy or you're deeply ambivalent about it, whether you're British or you're watching from 10,000 miles away, that choice matters. Now, I want to hear from you. This is the kind of story where your perspective genuinely matters and where there is real, legitimate debate to be had. Do you think this is the right move from Prince William? Do you think the Duchy of Cornwall's new strategy will deliver real, lasting change? Or are you more skeptical? Do you think the scale of the problems it's trying to address is simply too vast for even a £500 million investment to make a dent? And here's a bigger question. Do you think this kind of announcement changes how you see the British monarchy? Does it make you more optimistic about the institution's future? Or does it feel to you like too little, too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I would genuinely love to know what you think about this. If you found this video valuable, if it gave you something to think about, if it changed how you see something, if it gave you information you didn't have before, please hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds and it means the world for helping more people find this content. Share it with a friend who follows the royals, or with someone who thinks they don't care about the monarchy. Because this story is really about something much bigger than royal tradition. It's about housing. It's about the environment. It's about what power should be for. And subscribe if you haven't already. Because we do this kind of deep, thoughtful royal coverage every week. And trust me, there is so much more to come. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, the world is being shaped by the choices being made right now, by the people who hold power. This is one of those choices, and it's a good one.